All right. So next up, there have been a flurry of NBA moves that have taken place over the last couple of days. So let's talk about coaching fires. So with Brad Stevens being promoted after Danny Ainge leaving, there's an opening for the Celtics. Just recently, the Washington Wizards parted ways with their coach, and so did the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, Scott. Yes.
And before that, the Magic did. There's a couple other teams, but those are the main openings, and so the Trailblazers. But let's talk about some potential coaching candidates that could sign with the teams available. So for the Pelicans specifically, I think they need a defensive-minded coach. I mean, Stan Van Gundy is a defensive-minded coach, but he's old school, and he doesn't really fit the mentality of new day off a defense. I mean, he had his worst defensive performance while being a coach, and his system completely failed, starting Eric Bledsoe and Lonzo Ball together. I mean, Lonzo Ball has developed into a good shooter, but the fit there just doesn't make sense. So right now, I just think they need a defensive-minded coach to help Zion and Brandon Ingram. I mean, Zion's currently unhappy with the Pelicans, but right now, me personally, I think they need a defensive coach to help with that. Maybe Chauncey Billups is an option. I mean, it's a player-friendly coach, so maybe Chauncey Billups. I mean, he was a good defender when he was a player, and
Yeah, but I think he's
yeah.
fine on ESPN. But
I mean,
I don't
he's an
feel like
assistant
the
coach too.
Pelicans.
I mean, Chauncey Billups is an assistant coach in the Clippers, so he's a potential head coaching candidate. So yeah.
Yeah, but I don't feel like the Pelicans are gonna win a championship in the next 10 years. Just the organization as a whole, the way they
Yeah.
play, it's just so ugly to watch. I hate watching them because it's either Zion taking out the ball or it's Brennan Ingram taking the ball. They both play ISO. It's not like, or it's Lonzo just jacking up a three. They're like one of the worst teams to watch, I feel, in the NBA, and their defense is awful. So I feel like they're one of the worst teams in the NBA to watch.
Yep. All right. In regard to the Portland Trailblazers, they fired their coach Terry Stotts after 10 long years. Damian Lillard never had another coach to play for. So, in my opinion, I think they should get a defensive coach once again. Their defense was lackluster. They could not guard anybody. In my opinion, NS Kanter is probably at the door. If Damian Lillard does request a trade, I mean, they should do everything in their power to. CJ McCollum's definitely gone. In my opinion, they should do everything in their power to acquire star power. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns is available. Uh, maybe some other stars are on the block, but they should definitely do whatever they can to get another star wing. Maybe like a Bradley Beal. If Marcus Smart is available, the Trailblazers should definitely try to trade for Marcus Smart, but they should do anything in their power to acquire any defensive talent. So
No, I think the Trailblazers are never going to win championship because
I
they
mean,
left Gary Trent Jr. for Norman Powell, which I believe is one of the worst
I
trades
mean
this
the
season.
the
Um,
reason why they did that is they're
because
gonna
of
have
defense, right?
no.
Defense.
The
Well,
reason
it
why
clearly didn't work out.
is Gary Trent's a free agent this year, so they'd have to pay Gary Trent like 20 million. So they didn't
Yeah,
want to do
well,
that.
Gary Trent is a really good player, regardless whether he's a free agent. Gary Trent is a good player. Norman Powell is an okay, average player.
I mean,
Gary Trent has more
they're
potential
really
than
this.
Norman Powell.
I mean, they're really the same player. I just Norman Powell's a little taller. I mean, they average similar
And Gary Trent is
statistics.
a 10 times better shooter.
I
Like
mean,
it's not even close. Gary Trent is literally like
but Gary
good.
Trent's also very inconsistent, so that adds a factor. And Norman Powell was consistently making shots for the Raptors prior to the trade.
He's
So
consistently useless.
yeah, that is
No, they
true.
lost to who they lose to? The Nuggets. They lost to the Nuggets,
Nuggets
dude.
without two starters, so that Will Barton
Without
or
two
Jamal
starters,
Murray.
dude. They lost to Facundo Campazzo.
Yeah,
That just
Facundo
okay.
Campazzo. Yeah,
Also, D'Antoni should go to the Trailblazers. Like, if they had Gary Trent, that would be awesome.
I
With
mean,
D'Antoni, it would just be
offense was
so many threes. It would be so fun to watch. Like Gary Trent and Melo standing in the corner
it's
and be
yeah
like
it's not
only
about
3-pointers.
it's not about
Like
what's
his
fun to
system
watch.
sucks. I hate only taking 3-pointers.
I
I
mean,
hate the Jazz shooting 63
did you
pointers a game.
did you
Like
see
watching the
the?
Trailblazers do that.
I
Ooh.
mean, I don't think D'Antoni's a good fit with the Trailblazers because did you see Houston's defense when he was the coach of Houston? He's never really been a good
Oh,
defensive coach except for when he had Kobe, but Kobe's a good defender. So what they need, I don't think D'Antoni fits. I mean, they had a good offense last year. They just need a defensive coach. I mean, they need some defensive mentality. I mean, Damian Lillard is good enough to carry an offense. So
No,
that's
he's
that.
not. No, he's not. He's useless on off. He's useless without the ball. He's one of the without the ball. He's the worst player. He just stands there and says, "Hey, give me the ball so I can shoot from 50 feet," which makes it okay. He's great at that, but just he doesn't create space. Like there's no penetration to kick out or anything. There's nothing. He just stands. He just stands there. There's a
Yep.
reason why you don't see that's why Danny Green or players like Danny Green that just stand in the corner and run laps all game. That if Danny Green went to the Trailblazers or any type of 3-and-D guy, he would be completely useless because Norman Powell. That's why I think Gary Trent left. It's because
They traded him.
he was just standing there. Well, he
Yep.
didn't leave, but he probably wanted to leave. I mean,
Yeah, maybe.
he's a young talent,
Yeah.
and
Um.
the Blazers don't have a good like team offense. It's just like one
I
guy
mean,
takes it.
they
Same with
have
Melo.
one.
It's like,
Yeah, the perfect example of a 3-and-D guy is Robert Covington. He literally
Yeah.
don't. So he's on the Trailblazers, but he wasn't really a big impact. So they need some more playmakers. They just need more star power in general. All right, let's move on to the Celtics. So after Brad Stevens was promoted to president of basketball operations, they have a need at head coach. I mean, right now Jim Boylan is linked. Jim Boylan is linked to the Boston. So Jim Boylan is a terrible head coach. He was with the Bulls last season, and immediately after getting fired, their offense was really bad. And Zach LaVine, they basically were one of the worst teams in the league. Jim Boylan is just a terrible coach. He's so really funny. Never mind. But yeah, Jim Boylan's a terrible coach, and he's being linked to Boston. In my personal opinion, I would like to see. I'd like to see maybe Terry Stotts in Boston. I think that's a good fit. Terry Stotts is a player-friendly coach, and they just need more chemistry. Because by the looks of it, right now Boston doesn't seem to have a lot of chemistry. I mean, especially with Kemba. I mean, Damian Lillard might also go to Boston. I mean,
it's how they play.
Yeah,
It's how they play too.
Yeah,
It's how they play too. It's a lot of ISO ball, which again, there's no real penetration inside.
I mean, yeah, Mike
which
D'Antoni
clearly doesn't work. Like you see, all the teams, all the some type of penetration. I think the best example of that is the Hawks. The way that Trae Young can dish and Capella just stands there and then dunk it. Also, the Clippers do a nice thing with that, with PG doing that. The Suns do that with Paul. That's why you see him get so many assists. A lot of teams, the Sixers do that with Simmons, but not anymore. A lot now. The Sixers just do Embiid post up. The Giannis does that, of course, to Holiday and Middleton. But yeah, there are teams like the Celtics where they don't do any penetration whatsoever, and that's the reason why they don't make it. But let us move on.
I mean, one potential candidate I see fit for Boston is Vincent. He is a coach. He's an assistant coach from Milwaukee. He's been linked to several head coaching vacancies, but I think he's a good defensive coach, and the Celtics struggled defensively throughout the season. So I think Vincent, the Milwaukee Bucks, he's an assistant coach again. I think he's a good fit for Boston because sometimes they struggle to guard people. And for Boston especially, I think they need to acquire a center. I mean, Jonas Valanciunas is a free agent, and
God, they get him, and if they get him and they get a solid point guard instead of Marcus Smart.
They still have a $10 million trade exception from the Gordon Hayward trade. So
if they get Jonas Valanciunas, they're a top 3 team in the East.
So yeah, Jonas, they can do a sign and trade where they get Jonas Valanciunas maybe for a 3-year
But
deal.
I don't
Worth.
think the Grizzlies will get Jonas Valanciunas.
I mean, he's a free agent. He's a free agent, so I think they can give.
He was really
I know.
like
Maybe
valuable.
3 years,
Like the
56.
people in Memphis love him.
I know. Maybe 3 years, 56 million is fair for Jonas Valanciunas. I mean, he's below. He's like an average 3-point shooter for a center. So yeah.
No,
Jonas,
his 3-point is whack, dude. But his rebounding, finishing, and
he's exactly what the
offensively
Celtics
and
need.
defensively is really good. He is what